You came today to learn about the first 5 minutes. So when you start class or as you prepare for class, what are some of the things that you consider when you get ready to teach? This open question. What are some of the things that you consider or think about when you prepare to teach?
How do I introduce the topic to the students?
Mm-hmm. Just spitball it out here.
If they're awake.
They're awake, yes.
What time I'm teaching?
What time I'm teaching.
After lunch, right?
Yeah.
Did I get here on time? What are some of the other things that you think about?
The student population, what kind of students. Like this is the first time ever I have a class without any male students.
Ooh, okay.
It has been 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So first time without male students. But then the population itself, how old they are, what would they prefer, because we have students ranging from 19 all the way up to 55 and so.
Yeah,
How to keep them engaged.
keep them engaged. We care about that so much.
Mhm.
We all show up every day because we love sharing what we know with those students that we want to serve. And we can a lot of times be distracted by the craziness of all the committee meetings and all the extra curriculum meetings that we have. And sometimes life just gets in the way. And so what I ask for you to think about today is I ask for you to think about, focus on the first 5 minutes of your class. And if you can focus on the first 5 minutes of your class and lay out just those first 5 minutes, I bet you can be more successful in the following 25 minutes or the following 55 minutes. If you just really focus on putting together the basic elements of what a great class is and how to prepare that class. And those things that you give yourself and you give to your students. So, first thing that I want to also always demonstrate some of the things that I'm going to talk about, but our goals and objectives today for this workshop, we're going to list the 6 characteristics of adult learners. Because as you mentioned, our adult learners are very different nowadays than what we maybe saw when we were going to college. Discuss the aspects of classroom management for adult learners, because there is a difference. Identify 6 steps of ARGWAT, which is all fun to say. Everybody say ARGWAT. ARGWAT. And so it's very fun to say that. And it's a little mnemonic to really help you with this for first 5 minutes. And then lastly, create a plan for the first 5 minutes of your class. So I want you to practice doing this, and I want you to practice sharing some of the things that you already do in your class that probably automatically meet a lot of these standards. But the concept is, sometimes we're afraid of showing everything that we've done to our students prior to class. And I ask you, why not take the blindfold off? Why not show your students what's going to happen during that class period? Because we have all good intentions, and sometimes we're afraid of doing that because we think to ourselves, well, I don't want to show that I haven't gone through all the content that I planned today. Well, I think that's important for them and in their learning, and today I'll give you some tips of why that's important to do those things. So, ARGWAT can be a tool to immediately applied to the planning and class improvement, that first 5 minutes that you show the students. And it will actually show your students that as an adult learner, these things, showing them and revealing this to them, will actually help them learn more effectively. Like prime example, those goals and objectives. And I know this is really going to shock you here, but research has shown if you show your students your classroom goals and objectives for that day, they learn better. They perform better on tests. And sometimes we don't give that credit where the credit is due. I know we've done it. We know what our goals and objectives are for the class. And in fact, every morning when I teach, I'm driving to work and I'm thinking about the things I'm going to say, right? But sometimes I'll admit that I don't always share that with the students. But if we can just put those goals and objectives on the board, or share that with them in one way or another, or review that at the end of class, maybe they can meet your objectives more effectively. So, today, 10 minutes on adult learners, 10 minutes on classroom management, 10 minutes on ARGWA, discussion activities, wrap-up questions, and feedback. I generally, whenever I try to teach, I put this up on the board, and I tell the students, I put this up on the board for me more than it is for you, because it allows me to keep track of what I'm doing, but believe it or not, it actually helps them pay attention better. It helps them pay attention better because they know how much time you're going to spend on these things and on this topic. And when you get to, and think about it today, sometime during this workshop, you're going to ask yourself, and you're going to look at your watch, and you're going to say, okay, where are we supposed to be right here? Oh, we have 2 more minutes before we transition to the next topic. And then you're automatically going to say, okay, I can stay 2 more minutes with this. And it actually helps your students do this. So I want to start today with a little quick video.
Monday.com is a platform to track everything your team is working on. We use it for all our projects.
Got married, my grandfather was our best man, and the toast that he gave after the wedding was, may you live as long as you love, and may you love as long as you live.
I wrote, instead of cursing in the darkness, light a candle, because it came from a teacher who was struggling with cancer, and I figured if he could say a quote like that, then I can have a viewpoint like that with the small problems in life.
We'll collect the moments one by one. I guess that's how the future's done. I feel like a lot of the time people focus on the future as like a different place, but really it's like what's happening right now. So just living in the moment and seizing the day.
The quote I wrote was, make it count, spread pace, fear none except justice, and love all. You're never fully dressed without a smile.
Life is great, and there are great things ahead. Love one another.
Will the choices you make today be the choices you can live with tomorrow?
Smile is infectious.
If you come across some good words and quotes, then it's definitely a good idea to hold on to them and share it with others.
It's kind of like connecting on a human level with other people.
I think these are the principles we should live by. They internally reflect who we are, and they should shape our actions.
Ed Sheeran was playing. So, what did you think about that video? Throw out some ideas.
Organic.
Organic? Why was it organic?
Because you could just do what came to your mind. You had to do exactly what the teacher said.
Okay, yes. Have you ever started a class or been preparing for a class and you thought to yourself, what is the 1 or 2 concepts that you really wish my students could walk out of the room with? And then try to find something that actually connects with that topic in a tangential way. So, we're going to go into small little groups right now. So, we're going to have this group and this group right here, and we'll have a board here and a board here. And Scott, you're also part of this group. I'm sorry, I pointed back that direction. And I want you to, for a second, take 5 minutes, and I want you to try to answer some of these questions to yourself. And feel free to put these questions on the board so we can share it back or just briefly talk about it. But number 1, describe the difference, if any, between freshman and senior learning. Describe how you structure and manage a freshman level course compared to a senior level course or a graduate level course. How do you and your colleagues in your department approach classroom management? What expectations do you hold for your students? And how do your expectations translate to student behaviors? Okay. So take about 5 minutes and just chat through some of your ideas with that. Did we see a difference? Is there a difference between freshman and senior learning?
Learning. I think so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We really hope that in 4 years, we're able to take that student and make them better, right? And if it doesn't happen, we should be ashamed of ourselves, right? But that's the expectation we give ourselves, though, really, if we think about it. You know, does this college degree really make a difference? And it should. So how do we get our students from point A to point B? And that is our goal at a university. How do we do that? And so that's followed by the structure. Do we structure classes differently from freshman year to senior year? Because if we say we get them from point A to point B, I challenge you, then how is point B that much more than point A? It's the question that you ask yourself. And then how do your colleagues in your department approach classroom management? You know, do people approach classroom management differently? Do they approach it the same way? Which lead us to expectations. How do we communicate those expectations to our students? And how do our students respond? And you know, some people said that they rise to the occasion. You know, we expect them to read the syllabus. And has anybody ever, just as a rhetorical question, has anybody ever had a student go, "Oh, but I didn't know I had to read the syllabus," or "Oh, but I didn't know that something was due," or "Oh, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to. Is this plagiarism? I didn't know what this was." And you think to yourself, you know, sorry Terry for calling you out, but didn't you learn that in Comp 1? I mean, what is the missing link that our students have when they go from Comp 1 to Comp 2 and then come into a dance history course? And all of a sudden we think to ourselves, because let's face it, we've thought it, they should know how to write by now, but why are they writing differently from my class than they did in another class? And sometimes it is as simple as giving the expectations and reiterating those expectations at the beginning of the class. And then specifically saying, you know, what are the student behaviors? Because ultimately, if we think big picture, freshman to senior, we want their behaviors to change. So we ask, and what we need to do is we need to empower our students, and I encourage you to empower your students to say, how can we change these behaviors? So I just want to give you a quick overview. Adult learners, little learning theory. So andragogy, it's the study to lead man, broken down to lead man. We use the word pedagogy quite a bit, which is to lead the child, and andragogy, to lead man, or to lead the adult. Is what we're thinking of. And so we think about the science behind learning, and we know that the brain matures in their time when they're in college. And in fact, in a lot of ways, the word sophomore is broken down as sophomoric, and it's sometime between, in theory, the sophomore and the junior year, where they become adults all of a sudden. But we'll talk about some arguments against andragogy and Malcolm Knowles' theories, but what we really do want to bring our students from a childlike thought to an adult-like thought. And you ask yourself, well, how do I do that? What does that mean to do that? So Malcolm Knowles is one of the adult theorists that is most well known. for this adult theory, and he published in 1980 is when he actually came about, and andragogy became more popular to our everyday language. And his theory talks about 6 characteristics of adult learning, which is self-direction, goal-oriented, application, life experience, relevance, and intrinsic motivation. So we like to say that there's 6 originally, and in fact in 1967 when he first came out with this theory there were only 4. He started with 4, and then he added 2 more in 1980. And then what we propose today is adding a 7th one, which is our students don't like surprises. And this is something that we're learning more and more, and sometimes people are hiding behind the word trauma, or we're hiding behind the idea that they didn't have time to plan. And as we're all college professors, we can honestly understand what it's like because we want to do our best. We always want to do our best, and our students are getting more and more scared of not meeting the standards that they have. And that's a reflection of how the public school system is being run today before they get to college, because we have to take into account what they're going through. And I know we talk about standardized testing quite a bit, but up until this point, for the most part, and this is what I've witnessed with my own children, you learn information. We have to teach the information that's going to be tested on April and in March. And what happens up until then, we're teaching our students to do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. This is prior to coming to college. And then they're tested. And then sometimes, and I'll make a gross generalization, sometimes they're not really learning after that. The learning kind of slows down a little bit. And people get to relax. And it's okay because they've met that goal. Now some teachers, I will say, really great teachers, they continue to teach from there. But there's that content that must be delivered. So surprise is problematic. So just as a quick overview, that's on your sheet right there. Number 1, they're self-directed. They want to be autonomous learners. They want to have the sense that they're guiding their own learning. They don't want to be told, you have to learn this. Now they can do it. They can say, okay, this is going to be on the test. Right there, I want to learn this and nothing else. But are they really making the connections? 2, they bring life experiences. And one of the proponents to Malcolm Knowles' theories are kids have experiences too. And that's the truth. And in fact, all learning starts in one place and moves to point B. And so in theory, in learning, we all start as novices and move and build information until we are experts. Number 3, adult learners are goal-oriented. So what are the goals of learning? We talked about that. Can you say to your students at the end of the class, if you have this knowledge, this is what I want you to learn, then you will be prepared for what I ask you to do later. So just telling them that from the beginning and not making it a mystery. Not saying, oh, you're learning, but I'm going to give you a blindfold and you've got to trust me the whole way. So how can you communicate that more effectively? 4, they need relevance. We had that talked about over here. Relevance, how will this apply to my life? Is this really applicable? And we sometimes want them to just trust us. We do. We want them to trust us because, we've experienced this in our own life, but sometimes we forget to express that to them and to continue to bring that back in there. Or, let me just say this, let's flip it. We're asking them to trust us, but why don't we ask them to tell us how something that we talked about last class is relevant to their own life? What did you see in the news and media, and how is this important? Let them have that opportunity to share with their colleagues how that application is there. Learners need practical application. They need to practice. They need to have active learning. We all know that if I'm going to learn a dance, I can't do it once and expect to know it forever. I've got to do it again and again. I've got to develop that muscle memory. And I've got to develop the fact that I'm just not looking at the flashcards once and instantly. I remember it all. It's not. It's more about the constant review of that. And we tell our students this, but sometimes we don't tell them how to learn. And that's a bigger question is, how do you set your student up at the beginning of the first 5 minutes how they're going to learn that whole class period? What are the things that are there? And adult learners are intrinsically motivated. So one of the defining characteristics between a pedagogy and andragogy is in pedagogy, it's teacher-centered. We think, I'm delivering the information to you. But in andragogy, they've actually showed that motivation goes from extrinsic rewards to intrinsic rewards. So as we, as adults, as we become more and more mature, we naturally want to learn what we want to learn. And so we choose this difference. And that happens naturally in our brains. And let's face it, does anybody have a 13-year-old in here? What starts happening when they become teenagers? Does anybody, can you give me a gross justification of what actually happens? They don't really start listening to you anymore.
They're independent.
They're independent. You know, this is part of just their brains developing. This is natural. We can't fight that, and we're not going to win. So this is something to think about. And then adult learners are motivated, and they don't like surprises. So tell them what they need to do. And if they don't meet those expectations, if they don't rise to the expectations, then there's nothing we can say from that. So Malcolm Knowles, 10 minutes. So I propose to you Argwat. Everybody say Argwat again. Argwat. And so Argwat. So just to point out that it originated at a professor at UCO. So this workshop that I'm doing today is a conglomeration of some work that I did with a former colleague here at Seattle, Ashley Harness, or Ashley Riddle at the time. And we put together this workshop. And she, in her studies, was told this Argwat, and she said it to me, and then all of a sudden I thought to myself, this is so simple. It's so simple, why don't I just start doing it? And I did it in my classes. I started implementing, preparing for the first 5 minutes of class and workshops here at Seattle. And it completely changed your feedback that you gave us, and it completely changed my students' feedback that they gave me throughout the semester. And it worked, and it was simple. So Argwat addresses 1, 3, 4, and 5 of these adult learners. Works directly towards it, and it helped me stay on track. So Argwat, attention, review, goals and objectives, the why, agenda, and time. So Argwat, attention, a great video, a great piece of relevance that will then tie back into what you're going to talk about for the day. This is great attention to draw our students' minds and what they think they're supposed to learn for that day, and pinpoint it, focus it. It could be a current event. It could be a video. It could be something about like that wall that we were talking about, how we approach teaching and learning, why we approach teaching and learning. If you think to yourself, if you had a quote that said, this is what you do as a teacher, do we all have one of those quotes in the back of our head? You know, why do you approach teaching every day? Why do you do what you do? Why do you love this point? That's getting their attention. It's helping that transition from where they were prior to coming into class and getting their brain focused directly on that. Second of all, review. Review from the last class. Remember we talked about that constant review or constant content expression? Just bringing it up again allows them to not have to go back and study it again, or it's practice, you're providing that. And also on top of that, that review will actually let you know what they didn't get the first time. And if you know exactly what's going to be on the test, which we should all before we go into the class, you know, that review allows you to know what you need to go back. Goals and objectives, write them up, share them, let them know, because they'll be more successful. The why. Have we all watched Simon Sinek's The Why? The Golden Triangle? No? Golden Circle? I'll send it to you in your boost that you will get later. It's like 5 minutes, but it's start with the why. Not the how or the what, but the why. Because that's how we really emotionally connect and emotionally tie to what our students are learning. Because they want to learn with a purpose. That's where we are, that's where our cognitive brains take us. Agenda, let them know where we're going. So as they look at their watch, they know how much time is left. They know when the end of class is. We can tell that because the papers start ruffling. That's my hint. My hint, I'm like, okay, we got to wrap it up real quick. And so that tells me I have 5 minutes left right there. And then time, exactly help you to go through. And I'll admit right now, I am not sticking very well to that agenda. And I've already had some good curveballs thrown at me today. But it at least lets me and them know that there is a goal of what's going on. So attention can be a call and response. Time on screen, a funny video. Review. Did they get the material from the last class? Goals and objectives. Post them. The why. Remember that they're intrinsically motivated. Their short term is just to pass a test. But when it really comes down to it, what's their life application? Agenda. Putting it up on the board. Very easy thing to do. I know it sounds so simple, but put it up on the board and it'll make so much more sense to them. It also helps you review. Time. So, if we were to go through ARGWAT again, what would it be without looking at your piece of paper? Attention. Review.
Goals, objectives, why, agenda, and time.
Okay. ARGWAT. So here we go. What I want you to do is, I want you to share with each other how you already use an ARGWAT, but how the more intentional version of using ARGWAT might benefit your classroom practices. You can talk to them amongst your groups. So I've now started passing around. What we're going to show right here is a lesson plan. And I will have a copy of this up in our CETL Hub. I'll talk about that more in a second. That you can just download as a PDF and just spend a little bit of time putting it together for yourself, and it's just something that you can do. Or, if you don't do this, we all know what our ARGWAT is now. And we can do it for ourselves. Just write it down on a piece of lined paper. But I want you to take 5 minutes. I want to write down what class you want to do this for. I want you to put the lesson topic down, whether it be your next lesson that you're thinking about or have been thinking about while we've talked about this, when you're going to be teaching it, and literally start going through here. What is an attention getter that you can have? What are you reviewing from the last class? What are your goals and objectives? Why? If you can't think about the next one that you're teaching, I want you to think about the one that you just taught. And I want you to go through that. And if nothing else, the next time you teach it, you have a piece of paper that will teach you how to be more successful. Bring everybody back here. In our last 5 minutes, I want to show you a couple of things and we'll do a quick little review. So first and foremost, on Thursday, because we're going to take this video that we have today, and you're going to ask yourself, I could do this, but what would happen if the colleagues that you teach with did some of this also? So we're going to have a cut version of this workshop today, minus all the pauses and the thinking time. And we'll have it up on what we call our CETL Workshop Hub. And in that CETL Workshop Hub, when you go to today's event, you will have, number one, a copy of Adult Learners. You'll have a copy of a PowerPoint of the presentation today, what ARGWAT is, and another version of this lesson plan. We'll have this idea of this video that I got from Soul Pancake, which I love Soul Pancake a lot, when it comes down to, you know, why you teach. What is the one thing that you want to convey for that day? And then I will also have, and follow up in an email, with this video from Simon Sinek about the why. Also on this homepage, you will have an 8-question survey. That 8-question survey, if you take it, you will be automatically, upon taking that, you will be granted a certificate of participation that you can use in your professional development and literally just print out, or wait until the end of the year and print all of them out to show how you've participated through the year. Now, we're trying a new thing this year. We have, number one, that we all know that we can ask our students to just show up, right? But the next thing that we want to do is we want to show how it actually makes a difference. And we care about that too here at CETL. We don't need to give tests by doing it. But what we can do is we want you to take one step farther and go to application. Like, we know that what you have here, you're re-energized, and you can also apply to your classroom. But what we're going to do is, upon leaving here, I challenge you, we're going to have a discussion in that course in D2L, and it's going to ask you to share with us. I challenge you to take ARGWAT, take that lesson plan, and then at the end of teaching that class, I want you to simply ask your students, and it can be at the end of it, 5 minutes, how was this class compared to previous classes? And you can simply ask them, better, same, worse. And all you have to do is, when you come into this discussion in D2L, it will say, you just write in better, same, and worse, and then you can ask them why. And then if you have any suggestions, any feedback that the students have given you, because they might say, oh, I like when you write the timing of the class up on the board. Or I liked it, but you didn't stick by it. That is something, right? But at least you know that they enjoyed something that you can then improve, and ultimately it will feed your soul as a teacher, because it lets you know that they care about this and it helps them. So I challenge you to do that. At the end of this year, we're going to start acknowledging faculty who actually apply what's happening in CETL in our final year-end faculty review. So we're going to look at and to see who are those people who have taken the information and then actually applied it to your class. And that will show and demonstrate that there is an outcome. You know, we ask that for our students too. You know, they get a job, right? When they apply what we teach them, hopefully. So, just to go back and finish up, do a quick review. We talked about expect it to go away completely. Six or seven now. Self-direction, life experience, goal-oriented, relevance, need to know, application, intrinsic motivation, and no surprises. What's ARGWAT again?
Attention, I should see. Attention, review, goals,
objectives.
Agenda,
Okay. We discussed classroom management for adult learners. We discussed why ARGWAT and the ways to use it. And we created a plan of how we could implement ARGWAT in our own class. And did we get there? Can we list the 6 characteristics? Did we discuss classroom management? Can we identify ARGWAT? And did we create a plan for the first 5 minutes? So was I successful? Hopefully. Yes. There we go. Any questions?